Hey guys, today I am looking at Killing Floor. This is something I just kind of bought on a whim. I know Killing Floor 3 is coming out soon, and this is something I've always seen that I've thought, man, I have no interest in playing these kinds of games where it's basically a horde mode game, no story, no aesthetic, just shooting zombies and killing things a lot. And Killing Floor 2 is probably the most popular one, but I was based on the Steam store and I thought this was on sale for literally a dollar. It's 90% off. So I was like, well, I might as well jump in, right? I might, what's a dollar? And honestly, it's more than my money's worth. I was surprised that this is actually very well made, and very well thought out, and very basic too. And the tagline is said like a horror multiplayer co-op shooter. So someone made this just as like a thing they wanted to have, as like a fan project. It feels very fan-y, it feels very put together for the sake of being put together, I guess, and very much I'm 13 years old and this is edgy content kind of thing. So the basic premise is you have, up to four people load into a map, just like, Left 4 Dead. um, you kind of have this map that you can navigate around. You can weld doors shut by using a welder. And basically you start off with a pistol and a knife, and of course yes, you move faster with the knife because like Counter-Strike. And basically you have 5 waves or 4 or 5 waves where you have inter enemies that are weaker, then you got stronger enemies in wave 2, bigger enemies in wave 3. Wave 4 is all the enemies, and in wave 5 you basically have a boss wave where there's not a lot of enemies, but there's actually yeah, quite not a lot of enemies, but just one giant boss that can shoot like explosives, and you turn invisible, and just is like just a pain to get through. But it's funny, when I actually played him, or actually fought him, I guess I was an easy or something because he was not hard at all to take down. It was like, oh, that was actually wasn't hard at all. So it was like all this build up for something that dies to 4 grenades. So yeah. The other thing that's interesting about this game is that you can tell it's obviously made in the UK. You're using pounds. So the other thing is that in between each round, I forgot, you have like 30 seconds to a minute to go to the trader, who is always marked on the map. And so you go to the trader, and then you buy things from her like body armor, ammo, new weapons. What I found is that all the weapons you could buy are just different variations of a shotgun. And so once I tried all the different variations of the shotgun from, like pump, semi-auto, and the last one you get that's the best is the AA full auto one, like from Call of Duty. And that's kind of the best one you get. Some weapons you can find on the map are like a bullpup rifle, a hand cannon pistol, things like that. Some weapons only have flashlights, which was interesting. And so you basically go to press F and it'll swap to sometimes your shotgun, sometimes your pistol, depending on which one has a flashlight, which is super important. I found the knife was pretty decent. Some enemies actually got beheaded pretty easily by it, and was still kind of a semi-useful weapon as a total backup. Again, I was playing on, I guess I assumed the easiest difficulty, so it was very easy to, like, you never ran out of ammo. You could find ammo on the map, or buy from the seller, but you'd almost never run out. What was very impressive to me was the actual gameplay. There is a lot of games that are horde mode only games that you'd expect to be really good. For example, Payday 2. I don't like Payday 2. I really tried to play, to play it, and there were tons of memes, and I came in wanting to like it, and I just couldn't get into it. I just felt like I was fighting the same kind of enemies, even though there was some enemy variation. It was like the same thing over and over again. The weapons themselves were, okay, they were fine. But here, the enemy variety felt a lot more meaningful. There were certain enemies that exploded, like Left 4 Dead. Certain enemies that crawled along the floor, like these weird spider things. Certain enemies that had more health and giant chainsaw arms. It was just more fun fighting them. And I think the big mechanic that I really want to highlight, that I thought is super, super cool, and it's automatically activated. Feels like a weird perk thing. But if you get a certain number of headshots, the game goes into slow motion. And that's just really good. It reminds me of Fear. It said you can choose when to activate that, but it just feels really, really good, where in order to reward the player for playing well, it gives you this little slow-mo mode, and it just feels really good. Again, you can tell it's very bare bones. It's very much made in the moment. Like it to be like, oh, I'm gonna make a zombie shooting game for my friends, is what this vibe of this game is. So there's no story, no depth. It's just how much fun of a fun game can we make? And this is what they made, and it's, you know what, it's pretty decent. Again, what I like is that the levels are decently large. You can kind of go through an entire level and basically choose different points to make a stand, which I really like. So, for example, the trader is always moves between rounds. That encourages the player, and it has a marker where she always is. So you always know exactly where to go. So you'll do one round or one wave, and you go to the trader, and then you'll trade, get more upgrades, buy a new weapon, body armor, grenades, etc. Refill your ammo, and then you'll have a standoff there, and then the next time the trader will be someone else, and that forces you to go find them in order to refill your stuff, and then you have a different standoff in another section of the map. So each section of the map has almost like a mini story, like, oh, first we were at the desk, and then we were in the back room, and then we went to the ceiling or something. And so it kind of has a kind of story, but you decide exactly what that story is by deciding each location on the map. So it's totally up to your interpretation, which honestly is pretty cool. One thing I found about this game that, just in terms of how it's aged, that I just don't see in a lot of different Horde games, like even Left 4 Dead, is that there's one enemy that turns invisible, and you think that would be a more common thing, but I just found it interesting that was a really cool core mechanic, that even the bosses, they're a combination of all these things, so they have health, invisibility, whatever. But an enemy type that is invisible until it gets up to you is something that you think would be in Left 4 Dead, but isn't. So I was very kind of cool to see it here. It's also very nice how the enemies, their heads will explode when you usually shoot them, so that you always know when you get a headshot. And sound design, very impressive. It's one of the few games where the starting pistol sounds very powerful, very deadly, very large, and feels like a good alternative to even some of the more stronger weapons in the game. So again, even though the assets in this game are super basic, super bare bones, it feels it feels really, really good to play it. It feels something that definitely started off as a fan project and became something much more. And again, I'm just super impressed by the sound design and the feel of how the guns shoot. And again, like when you go into these Horde mode style games, that's all I'm asking. I'm just asking that the guns feel really good to shoot, because that's the only edge you have. You don't have time to do story and music and all this other stuff. And again, this game didn't even have music, but it had a really tight scope, a really great way to make the player move around the map, interact with different aspects of areas, different weapons. And the only thing that stopped me from playing is that there was no like overall upgrade system, and there was no way to try new weapons. So like if there was a weapon I hadn't tried, I would say, well, I need to keep playing so I can at least try this weapon. And I think my favorite weapon, of course, you had pump action shotgun, semi-auto shotgun, full action shotgun, break rifle shotgun. The one thing I didn't realize, though, is the last one I tried is Vlad the Impaler. I thought it looked like a flamethrower to me, but it was literally some budget-ass, ratchet, technical shotgun that was created to shoot a bunch of nails and debris out of it. And I thought, oh, that's really cool. I'm kind of confused why that's like the mid-range shotgun. I think it'd be cool if that was like the very first shotgun, like for $0 or something you could buy. That has very few ammo, very restricted. But it feels very fun to shoot because you actually see the nails bounce off all the like the ground and everything. Also, the grenades and explosions feel really good in this game. It almost like vaporizes the enemies, and if you get a bunch of them in a row, you're almost guaranteed a slow-mo thing. And again, playing this with friends is totally co-op, and so it's just a bunch of old school fun. And I was just pleasantly surprised because Killing Floor is a game series that just has always looked very unappealing to me. It's like, oh, you're killing a bunch of zombies, monsters, whatever. It just looked really dark and depressing and gross. But actually playing it, I'm like, oh, you know what? This is actually kind of fun. It doesn't have exactly an uplifting tone or anything, but it's just there to shoot guys, basically. And it's not there to be really gross or disturbing. It's just there to have a good time with your friends and shoot a bunch of weird random stuff. And that's it. So it's a short, fun, well-made game. Good enemy designs, good character designs, good enemy reaction. Just overall good gameplay, and you could see this being the basis or the engine for this being as a means to create a much better, more interesting game. I mean, yeah, you could take the platform of this and change out the enemy types or the the style of it. They could, I hate to say it, Fortnite-ify the graphics even and turn it into a modern shooter that is much more kid friendly, because the basic gameplay components of it feel really tight and really good, and it's something that I could see going on into the future as something completely different, but still keeping that really tight gameplay. And yeah, they just got a really good formula. There's nothing else to it. I think this would be really fun to play with friends. I think it would be really, challenging and enjoyable. And this kind of has a flavor of the month military shooter or, multiplayer game to it, where I could see if this came out back in the day, this would be something that people would play for a month and then move on. And unfortunately, like most multiplayer games that are based on gameplay only, people kind of come together, they play it for a little while, and again, then they move on to something else, and that's it, right? So, but yeah, that's Killing Floor. Surprisingly decent is what I want to say. It's surprisingly fun. I give it a shot. Even I was playing solo and I was having a fun time. But a typical normal wave-based game, have at it. Anyway, that's pretty much all I got to say for this one. I'll see you guys later. Bye.